All right, we are live. We're just going to wait just a couple more minutes I know there's some extra people who are wanting to be a part of this conversation tonight. So we're just going to wait a couple minutes to give people's time and space to hop on the call. So I appreciate you guys and the people who are coming on tonight to have some really interesting conversations. So we're just going to give it just a couple more seconds just to get people on, and then we'll go from there. Right, just a couple more seconds because I know there are a lot of people who are hopping on, and we'll get this thing going. Thanks for being patient, guys. We appreciate it. All right, well, hey, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for being a part of tonight's Community and Culture Night. We really appreciate. My name is Neighbor. I'm a moderator tonight. And as always, Community and Culture Night is an opportunity. It's a place and a space for young adults in the Indianapolis metro area to come together, have some interesting conversations, learn from one another. And so I'm really excited to dive into the topics today. We have some really great conversations that I'm really excited to dive into. Before we kind of get going, I just want to set some context because I think it would be wrong and irresponsible of us not to address everything that's been going on in our country. When we're going to get an opportunity to hear someone who I think is brilliant, who has a lot of great things to say on this LaMarcus. Actually, when we asked for him to be a part of this, we had really no idea what was going to be happening around the country. And so we're excited for the conversation that we get to have. We're excited for the conversation that Anna's going to follow up with in regards to love languages and understanding how we can bridge that gap. And so we just kind of want to take a moment just to recognize and acknowledge what's happening on in our country. And as young professionals, we begin to have these conversations, my hope and desire is that we look ourselves and we approach this situation of systemic racism in America. We approach it head on with humility and recognize that we all have our part to play through policy change, through awareness, and through various avenues. And so what we're going to do is, as LaMarcus is going to hop on here in a sec, we're just going to talk a little about what's going on specifically in his life and specifically in Indianapolis, and give an opportunity for us to kind of have those conversations. So if you are joining this call, essentially what we like to do is Wolf's going to speak for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we'll have about 5 minutes for questions. If you're watching on Facebook, you can type in those questions in the comment section. We'll be able to read those out at the end of both LaMarcus and Anna's time. And so this whole thing should wrap up in just under an hour. But we just wanted to make sure that you knew kind of what to expect. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce LaMarcus. He's someone I worked with. Our paths crossed at Ivy Tech. And I'm really excited for us to share what's going on in his life and everything there. So I'm going to bring him up on the screen here in just a second and have him introduce himself. LaMarcus, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Greetings, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
And proudly support you. Me and you we crossed paths maybe 3 or 4 years ago. and I'm still glad to be part of your movement, brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the conversations we've had. I appreciate your wisdom that you share on social media, and so it's an honor that you will be a part of what we're doing today. So for those who don't know you, why don't you give a little background, who you are, what you're about, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right, my name is LaMarcus Hall. I'm born and raised in Elberton, Georgia. I am currently adjunct professor at Martin University, and I'm also a doctoral student at Indiana State University, where my focus is higher ed leadership. I'm a proud father and husband. I'm happy. I have a beautiful wife, Alexandra, and I have 3 lovely children, ALL, Ansley, Leah, and Lance. And I'm just glad to be here to share with you. We are going through some trying times right now. I'm tired of the fluff. I'm tired of the code words to not have the comfortable conversation. So words like, oh, the urban community. No, just say the Black community or the ghetto. We use all these big words and codes to give a message or undertone, but at the end of the day, we're not being effective by not being blunt and just getting right to the issue, which is also why we continue to perish, if you will, from a political and generational standpoint.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's kind of where I want to start this conversation. One of the things, if you've been on social media, you see this all the time. The big question is, what do we do, right? Like, what's the next step? Where African Americans, what do we do? The Black community, what do we need to do? White people are asking, what do we need to do? And one of the things that I have always kind of mentioned is start where you're at. Right. And for you, education is a massive part of who you are. It's a part of your life. You believe in mentorship. You believe in kind of education being a pathway out of generational poverty into new areas. So I just kind of wanted to start by asking you, for you at your age, with you having 3 young kids, for you to pursue, especially as a Black man, for you to pursue your PhD in educational leadership, I just kind of want to start there. Why educational leadership? Why is education such an important part of your journey in terms of your development individually, and then helping other Black men in our world?
First and foremost, I've always looked at education as a key to success, or the key to the gate, or the glue that holds everything together. And if you look at the backing or the founding of this country, let's be straight and forward. Education was not even made for Black people. That being said, we were founded on the have and have not system. So to get the opportunity to be educated is more than just a paycheck. It's more than just, hey, look at my degrees on the wall. I'm this, you're not. When in reality, you're actually paving the way for your next generation, your future, your children, down to your last name. I have, I'm not ashamed to tell you, I've always had struggles through schools. People say Head Start is this, Head Start is that. I was in the program. Head Start is a program that caters to low income families.
I was a part of it. Yep.
Exactly. K through 12 system was not the brightest student. I struggled with math. I hope Coach Alton Smith is listening. Those were some people who spent extra time with me after school to make sure that I got through. That being said, who am I to not help someone? And from a Christian perspective, I feel that if you get too high and mighty, the Lord will quickly start to show yourself and other people and force you to help them. There have been times where I have been out walking in the community or talking with someone, and I can literally see myself in that child, in that male, and literally start to have a conversation with them as if I'm having a deja vu moment. Being said, I don't take that for granted. I realize I easily could have been a statistic. That could have been me shot on 62nd in Michigan. I could be gunned down right now. Unfortunately, even in 2020, I have to watch where I travel. Half tank of gas, regardless. Unfortunately, we have to know what we call sundown towns. These are issues that people don't want to address. But if they were not true, why is it still happening today?
Yeah. So on that thread of giving back to the next generation, to have those conversations with those who are coming after you, explain the importance of mentorship in the roles that you play in, and how do you see that being a way to further having these conversations and to sharing with people the truth of what's happening in the community?
So when I talk to either clients or young males in general, it's important to mentor. But one key thing about mentor we need to understand is that you can't mentor someone with something you haven't been through. Kids already have a low attention span due to technology advancements in itself. So why am I going to waste my time giving a child a lecture knowing they may or may not pay attention at school? I tell people, if you take a person who's been through something, some trials and tribulations, you take a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, and put them in a room, and you take a person who's been through some things and the community knows it, those children are going to gravitate towards the person they've seen go through. A lot of times when you put on, these ties and these, I'm a bow tie addict. That's me. I'm a bow tie addict. However, don't let it fool you. There was a time I didn't know how to tie a tie. That's one thing I enjoy. But what I do know is when you're mentoring, you need to adjust to the community. So, prime example, if the students don't listen to the teachers who are formally dressed in the classroom, what makes you think they're just going to walk up and listen to you? That being said, sometimes you have to unloosen that cuff link, take your bow tie down, put on some blue jeans, and meet the children, students, community members, constituents, wherever they are. That shows humility. That shows you have been through some things, and they'll be more comfortable to speak with you about various issues. Because at the end of the day, even a 3-year-old, though they may not have the highest language capacity, I've seen situations where a child can read a person that's genuine versus a person who's fake.
I appreciate you saying that because our paths crossed when we spent time working at Ivy Tech, and within the Ivy Tech community, now you're at Martin. You see a wide variety of students from from a very specific socioeconomic background for the most part, right? And so one of the things that I discovered coming from a large state school in Missouri was if I did not take the time to come down to my students' level, to hear what they're saying, to take the time to process with them, they weren't going to open up and share what was going on in their world, right? Like I wouldn't know that they're working all night and then sleeping in a car and coming to class the next day, right? And those are some of the things that is not really shown or seen unless you take the time, kind of what you said, loosen up the bow tie and meet people where they're at.
Yes. And it's all about realness. I'll just be case in point. Minorities are tired of being lied to. So if you come in and being a phony, act like you've been, living with a silver spoon in your mouth, technology is there. They can go out and find out your upbringing in a few minutes. That being said, you can't put on for a student, so you need to be real with them. And even in my courses that I teach, I try to be realistic. I show them actual pictures, some of my struggles. I have no shame in that because at the end of the day, I have that safe space for my students for them to share. And I also make it clear to them that though I've been afforded degrees and some call them accolades, what have you, I am still learning every day. And I feel that once you create that circle, you present growth. But if you come in, I know it all, I do this my way, you're missing out on a blessing. Part of teaching is not only educating, but getting a blessing or a refreshing of learning from what's current and what's going on right now with our students.
That's good. So, and I want to stick with education just for a little bit longer, and then we can kind of zoom out, and then especially kind of what's going on at Indy. For you've seen education at all different levels. What do you think is missing in the educational system, or what's one clear thing that maybe you see that maybe other people don't see that's broken, that maybe disenfranchises our Black men, Black women, other minorities, students of color that maybe people don't see, but as a student and as a faculty member, as a mentor that you see that is hurting students?
Okay. I'll give it to you from an example of me and your upbringing is through Head Start and K-5. We remember we had those old boring black and white sheets. Sometimes they were even printed in purple. But if you go to do a history, that was a low budget ink for the people who couldn't afford the black ink in our schools, right? If we were bored with that, what makes you think that today's kids are not bored with your textbook? That being said, we have to offer alternative ways to teach our children, teach our families, and teach our community. Everybody is not a textbook person. Everybody doesn't have the same attention span. So if you can't be adaptable in your teaching, you're not going to be adaptable in how you can reach students in the community.
Wow, that's That's really good. You know, my family, we were in Head Start, and then we moved to Missouri, and so then we're in a traditional, public school system. But the idea that education has become one track, one way. This is the way it has to be, and it doesn't cater to other styles of learning. It doesn't cater to the experiences that that those in the Black community who systematically are typically end up being poor and in poverty experience. I love that you frame that, because essentially what we're saying is there's really only one track, and if you don't know how to play that game or in that one track, then you're out of luck.
Absolutely. Prime example. If I look back over and reflect over my education, I was talking to my wife about this actually a couple of days ago. I should have been forced to learn a trade. You know, we would come through schools. It was like, oh, get your college prep sealed and get your tech prep sealed. I should have been forced to learn a trade regardless whether I used it or not. Case in point, the race majority, they pass down trades. They pass down that last name. They pass down the family business. So whether that child wants to or not, they have something to fall back on. We as minorities, we don't do this. We get ours and we leave. I got mine. I'm good. What about you? What about the next generation?
I
feel that if you get too high and mighty, life will knock you down, and then you'll soon have to turn right back around and go serve the people that put you down.
That's good.
But you have to be open. But you have to be opening up and accepting to that.
Yep. So I want to zoom out and actually kind of zoom out of education, more kind of focus back in on Indy. Because when we started having these conversations about you joining, one of the things that you were passionate about is talking about what's going on, and specifically in our community in Indianapolis. The people who are a part of this is not, there are a lot of people who are in the Fishers area and the Carmel area, but we also have North Indy, et cetera. And as this community grows, we're going to have people from the whole Indy metro area. And so I just want to give you an opportunity in space to kind of share a little bit about what you see in Indianapolis, and what do we need to be aware of? The people who don't get to venture out as much, what can we do? What are you seeing?
I'll say this first and foremost. Me and you both know about gentrification. So you move out to the suburb area, it builds up your taxes. You have all these amenities, yada yada. The adjacent town or adjacent direction of where that gentrification is loses value, okay? Which causes poverty and all other things which are intentional, right? But at the same token, in today's society, neither area is safer than the other. Because people, they kill me, they come to me, oh, I live in Fishers, but I got robbed. Or, oh, I live in the Geist Reservoir and someone broke into my home. Somebody could break into your home whether you live north, south, east, or west.
Right.
In a sense, it's preventable. In a sense, it's not. And the other caveat to what I'm saying is, do you remember when we came up, there was a song by Escape called Who Can I Run To When I Need Love, right? I'm going to rephrase that. Who can a Black man in this point run to when they need love? Right? K through 12. In the typical church, not in the church that I attend, but in a typical church, especially those that are traditional, who can a Black child run to? Everybody sit in the stands. I've been saved all my life and I've never done anything wrong. Okay, you just turn away a Black male from talking to you. Go to the school setting. You got people who are sitting and waiting for a child to not succeed. Me and you both know about the I-STEP test, which is a very serious test where they look at a child's ability around the age of 3. And if that child is not performing at a certain level, they are then put into various systems, which in result could possibly, not saying all, but could possibly lead to the schools to prison pipeline. So if you want to be just straightforward, 1865 to 2020, our resources are still low. I'm still stared at the red light, shirt and tie or not, because of the color of my skin. I still, make people feel kind of crazy when they ask, I might have a conversation with someone. They would say, oh, you actually went to school? And you tell them, okay, I have 3 degrees. Then it's like, you were waiting for that. You were waiting for me to manifest your stereotype, but I beat you. So
that's good.
Yeah, microaggressions are real too. So just because you don't call me the N-word or say something to me that's offensive, that doesn't mean you're not necessarily affecting my being or affecting who I am. The gestures, the side looks, the stares, they all play a systematic role on a person's ability. And me and you both know it touches the lives of people of color in a drastic and deep way.
One of the, we kind of talked about this when I first met you. I grew up in Missouri, Southwest Missouri. I grew up in a primarily white area. I went to school in a primarily white school. But what those conversations are so real when you talk about microaggressions, and you may not straight up call me the N-word in front of my face, but when someone says like, oh, well, I can't believe how articulate you are, or you X, Y, and Z, you like this, or you dress like this, right? That it's almost like you're not who I thought you should be, right? I think from what you're saying is you get the opportunity to create that, like you have had opportunities to be more than what people have labeled you to be or what the system should have taught you to be, and now you're getting the opportunity to give that back, especially in Indy. Oh, looks like I lost you for a second. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Looks like I can hear you. Give me 1 sec here.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can. Oh, perfect. I can hear you now. All right, we're good to go. Perfect. Sorry about that.
What I was saying was that, like, I just feel like through my career, I just feel like I've been blessed with many opportunities, some afforded beyond my imagined. So who am I to not go back and help the next person, next generation? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a person of color, but at the end of the day, right, that's who I identify as. And I mean, case in point, George Floyd, case in point, the young man killed here in Indianapolis. You can say what you want. Those things taunt me on a daily basis. I tell people, having a 2-year-old son, and though I've been afforded opportunities, if it comes down to injustice and it comes down to racism, they don't see my degree. They don't see this bow tie. They see the black man right there.
Yeah.
All of that goes out of the door. Everything I've done for humanity goes out of the door in a split second. And I could literally be shot down like a stray dog running to the woods right now.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I just have to find ways to reverse that trauma. So when I have those moments when I'm thinking about it, speak with my mentees and colleagues, or go back in the community and serve. I feel that's another way that has helped me, is going back into the community and helping other persons of color, particularly black males. It gives me the opportunity to decompress, input, and empower the next generation.
We're gonna go ahead and open up for questions, but I want to give an opportunity before questions start coming in, give you an opportunity. Are there specific places that come to mind immediately where those who feel like they haven't been able to help now are compelled more than ever to give back, maybe locally to their community? What places and areas you say, hey, this is where you can lend your time, your talent, your treasure in terms of financial resources to empower, to help, and to maybe create policy change to help the education system? Are there any places in particular that you're thinking before questions start rolling in?
I will give two. One, Elder Martin Christian Center is the perfect place. It's actually adjacent to the Indiana juvenile court system, also known as School 37. That is a place that offers so many different resources. But at the end of the day, when you're helping people, there's no such thing as enough resources. So go lend your time there. Go volunteer. If you have a business, go show another young person how to start a business. If you're good in finance, go and show another person how to deal with finances. Volunteer, sign up to, go volunteer at the Child Development Center. That's a place I spend time. Why? My children are there. Number two, I have a passion for kids like no other. And
master's is in early childhood education. Is that correct?
My undergrad is in child and family development. I have a first master's in higher education leadership. I have a second master's in curriculum instruction, and now a PhD student. But then again, as I just said, those degrees mean nothing if I'm not going in and pouring back into the next community. They're honestly a piece of paper of ink on the wall that's all nice and eloquent. But if I'm not going back and penetrating the community and, putting the next link on the chain, what was the purpose of those degrees?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, because I think that's in the conversation that we've been having across the country, that piece of it, and that's exactly why, LaMarcus, I brought you on, because your humility and your perspective is what we need, and that idea of we got to build the next link in the chain to empower the next generation to have more than we ever did, right? I had a mentor tell me, he said, my ceiling should be your floor, right? And that's the way it should be, because when there's no pride, then everybody succeeds and everybody grows.
When I walk up to when people say, "Oh, you have these accolades and your LinkedIn profile is so eloquent," my response immediately is, "Don't be like me. Double what I've done. Double what I've done." Because in that time of achievement, there were obstacles. In that time of achievement, there were times where I made mistakes where I could have done better. No, you may not see that from a LinkedIn profile or social media standpoint, but I'm just being real about it. So whatever I can achieve, you can double it. However, you don't have to follow my same track to be successful.
I love that. So we got a question coming in. It says, what does it look like? What motivates you to always be learning? What's the thing inside of you that's like that there's always one more thing to learn and always one more thing to absorb?
I think what motivates me behind my learning would be providing for my family. What was it, the commercial on NBC? The more you know, the more you grow, and the little star used to go across the screen. That's fact. Yeah, that's fact. So I don't know why, but it's like learning has given me this high that I do not, I do not want to be cured from. I just enjoy ingraining myself into learning modules and different various themes and theories that will help me become a better person. However, all of these things are in motion to be a better provider, take care of my family, and set the bar for the next generation.
That's good.
And I'll even say for even those who I don't know, because truth be told, you don't know who's following you, and you definitely don't know who's watching you from afar right now. We don't even know who's watching us right now.
Yeah, that's good.
In a sense.
No, and what you say and how you say it in those unseen moments, that's integrity, and that's what people take and absorb and remember about you.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, it's not about the win. It's about when it was 7-7 and it's 2 seconds on the clock and you got the win. Not when you won 42-0. But what did you do when the obstacle came and jumped over and crossed over?
Yeah.
Those are the moments that people are going to remember the most.
Yeah, that's good, LaMarcus, man. I appreciate you. I love that. One of the questions you always like to ask our guest speakers is, what does community look like for you? And then I want to double down on that, and specifically in relationship to the conversation we've been having around the Black community. What does Black man and having Black men around you, because one of the things for me is, growing up in an all-white context, some of my Black friends didn't come until I was in college, right? And because I grew up in an African context, it's just a very different world. And so I'm still learning what does it look like to have a Black community around me, right? Ivy Tech, like having you as someone I could always speak to, Charles and other people like that, was a really good opportunity. So for you, what does community look like, and what does having a Black community around you look like?
I say community for me, I really see no color. Yes, we all have a bias based on our upbringing and our experiences. However, having that Black community is necessary. So, for example, coming up in a small town, I saw some successful Black men, but I'll be honest with you, when I moved to Indianapolis, I freaked out when I saw the Black pages for this city, all the different businesses and services that were provided by Black owners and persons of color. It really blew my mind. That being said, we need to surround ourselves around other Black men, and our challenge, surround yourself by somebody who's quote unquote more than you, and achieve more than where you or achieve more than what you have, or going in the direction you want to go. There's no need to have this circle of everybody at the same path. Nobody's going to grow. The blind can't lead the blind. So
Right.
if you're a coordinator, then start associating yourself with VPs.
Mm-hmm.
That way you have a third eye. Somebody can go back and help craft, help motivate, and empower you to leap those hurdles and get to where they are. Most importantly, help you hit every goal that you want to hit, and possibly surpass them.
Right. Hey, well, we could go on this for another hour, but we gotta wrap this up, man. I so much appreciate your wisdom, humility, and I love this conversation because it's not the same conversation that's been repeated. You provided something new that I think that I needed to hear, that I think everybody listening needs to hear, and so we appreciate you. We love you, brother, and I'm so thankful for you, my friend.
God bless. This won't be the last time.
Absolutely. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? What's the best way to do that?
Quick way. LaMarcus J. Hall is my Facebook. LaMarcus J. Elevates is my Instagram, and my LinkedIn is LaMarcus J. Hall as well. I also have an email right now that you could use. My name, LaMarcusJHall@gmail.com for future speaking engagements, or you also can email me at lhallnarratives@gmail.com. That being said, I offer multiple ways to be contacted. I am not the stuck-up guy. I will meet you where we are so that we can come up with a plan to empower your community.
Perfect. Thanks so much, LaMarcus. I appreciate you, my friend, and we'll make sure we put that information out so people can get a hold of you if they need to.
Absolutely. Thank you for this humbling moment, sir.
Absolutely, my friend. You take care.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Really appreciate LaMarcus coming out and sharing his experience, especially when it comes to education and mentorship and the relationship there and what that looks like for us. The next up, I'm really excited as we kind of continue on this conversation, especially when it comes to mentorship and what does it look like to meet every person where they're at. And I couldn't think of a better way to approach that conversation of meeting people where they're at than to talk about love languages. Love languages was something I was introduced to a few years ago. I grew up in the church, and so oftentimes that's a context that you often hear it. But then also right before I got married, was reintroduced to it again, and honestly, it was game changing. So I don't want to steal Anna's thunder, but I want to give Anna the opportunity to share, and so I'm going to bring her up on the screen here in just a second, and then she's going to share her experience, and I'm really excited. So thanks so much, Anna, for hopping on and being a part of this.
Thank you so much, Nee. I'm really looking forward to speaking with everyone tonight, and huge shout out again to LaMarcus for everything that he shared with us. I have always been really inspired by people who chase their education and stop at nothing to keep learning. So thank you for that. And Nee, I think you said it really well when you said that there's love languages is such a great way to meet people where they're at and really kind of bring out the best in people. Love languages is something I've been interested in for a really long time. I love hearing that you and Rachel talked about it before you got married. I think that's fantastic and such a good way for couples to connect. And I also, I think that love languages is so valuable, not only for a romantic relationship context, but for friendships, for coworkers, for your favorite barista, your everybody. I mean, it's something that can truly resonate with anyone, and no matter what your connection to them looks like. So I'm excited to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to go through the slides that I have, and then we'll address any questions, obviously. But yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping in. So very quick, first of all, just the background and context. Nee made a great point when he said that this is often brought up in a church context. It was founded by Dr. Gary Chapman, who essentially put out the idea that different people with different personalities experience and express love and appreciation for one another in different ways. And so there's actually a whole kind of different branch of the love languages, if you will, called the languages of appreciation in the workplace. And it uses the exact same love language model, but it tailors it very specifically to the workplace. And so I'll talk a little bit about both of them, but primarily, love languages, this is what it is based on. And there's also dozens and dozens of books written about it as well. Why is it so important? I think understanding the 5 love languages, how they show up for people, and, the ways in which people want to be appreciated and want to feel loved are important, because we can be speaking our known language of love to someone else so consistently and so powerfully, and we still might never be reaching them because it's not how they want to appreciate or it's not how they want to receive love. So it's very important to understand each of the different languages and kind of start to recognize ways in which they show up for other people in your life. So we'll talk about ways to practice them. We'll talk about some basic do's and don'ts, and I'll ask you a couple questions at the end that will help you kind of develop an action plan on how to practice this. So some quick fast facts. For those of you who have gone to the 5 love languages website and have taken the assessment to find out what your own love language is, you likely received a ranking of your love languages based on how much you like to receive them. So the assessment is based on how you like to receive love, but it is possible to have a different type of language for how you like to receive love and how you like to show love and appreciation. Everybody receives and gives all 5 languages to some varying degree, but they are ranked in preference order. So, for example, right here, this happens to be my ranking of love languages. The most important things to recognize when you're learning about love languages are, first, your primary love language, how you most like to receive love. Second, your secondary love language, which is your kind of immediate default, and very often is also the way that you like to express appreciation and love. And then your least valued language is also something that's very interesting to think about, because it is referred to as your blind spot. So that might be the language that you have the most difficulty expressing, and it might be because you don't feel love or appreciation through that love language. And so when you are in a relationship, romantic, platonic, or otherwise anything with another person who, if their top language is your bottom language blind spot, that is something that it's a really good opportunity to talk about and learn even more about how they like to receive love. So I'm going to challenge you all. Obviously, I know we're going to do the interactive part at the end, but think about a time where you personally felt appreciated or valued or loved, and it could be in any relationship. For those of you who have taken the assessment, you're likely thinking of a time where that top love language, that primary love language, was where you felt that. And for anyone who hasn't taken the assessment, this is one of the quickest ways to figure out what your primary love language might be, because often the first thing we think about when we're asked this question shows us exactly what our love language is. So I'm going to dive into each one of these a little bit. And I know that this is a lot of content, and so if anybody would like the actual slides, I'm more than happy to send them to you afterwards, but I'll go through each of the 5 love languages. So I'm going to start with acts of service. The basic definition is demonstrating care and concern through a willingness to help or share a burden. So you're giving your time or your talents to serve someone else. I'm going to share a myth and a fact about each of these. Common myth of acts of service is that people who value acts of service are not capable of doing things themselves, or they're lazy, or they have a poor work ethic, or they constantly need to be rescued. In reality, a fact of people who value acts of service is that they just feel energized when they can connect with other people and achieving a common goal, and when they feel valued because someone else is willing to give their own time and talents to help them. So some easy ways to practice acts of service for those in your life who value acts of service. Running errands for other people, helping with chores around the house, and especially without being asked to help with chores around the house. That's a huge one. Helping, a coworker with their weekly to-do list, and always anticipating those needs early, and, showing that you are thinking ahead and thinking about what they are going to appreciate and what they're going to benefit from ahead of time. So even the little things like helping someone move, or, helping someone out with a quick ride to the airport goes a long way. Some basic do's and don'ts. Always, especially in a work setting, always make sure your own work is done first, and that you actually have the capacity to perform this act of service. Set manageable expectations. Obviously, do what you say you will do, and be enthusiastic. And so, on the opposite of that, it can be very hurtful to people who value acts of service when someone offers to help them and then either forgets or flakes on what they said they were going to do. It's also not a safe space for people who value acts of service when they feel that someone is coming to them, offering an act of service, and then changing the way in which they want to perform whatever that task is. And so if you're, helping a coworker with a project, offering to help them because they value acts of service is not the same as offering to, take the project off of their plate and do the entire thing in your own way. So yeah, basic do's and don'ts. Quality time is next. Quality time. This is my primary love language. It's absolutely my favorite. Quality time is defined as dedicated and focused attention, which is centered on companionship and sharing experiences. So a common misunderstanding for quality time is that people who value quality time are lonely or clingy or trying to get in with different groups or people, constantly trying to be in the picture, maybe expressing that FOMO, fear of missing out kind of factor. In reality, the fact is people who value quality time are energized by that mutual focused attention and sharing common experiences. So, some different ways to practice this. In a work setting, take some off-site meetings. I think it's very important to change up the setting when you can. For your long-distance friendships and relationships, FaceTime is quality time's best friend. And so use FaceTime to your advantage. And right now, especially now more than ever, we're all so used to FaceTime and Zoom, and I think the silver lining of this whole experience is that we're learning how to use those tools more, and we're practicing building our relationships with those tools more. Schedule and stick to your meetings, your date nights, your phone calls, whatever it is that you commit to, and then change up the conversation topics. Always try to find new things to do together. A very important one for another kind of in the do's and don'ts, a really, really important one is put your technology away. And this is something that every one of us struggles with from time to time. I know I certainly do. But true invested quality time means, you're not staring at your phone, you're not in the middle of a conversation at lunch, but also texting somebody else on the side. It really is that mutual and focused attention throughout that common experience. And then some quick don'ts, don't force it. I think some people, even when they do value quality time, if it's not their primary love language, or even if it's their blind spot, their bottom language, it can hurt a relationship to try to force quality time on someone. And then similarly to the technology piece, don't interrupt and, allow for distractions during that quality time. So a quick tip that I really appreciate is just a simple, inviting someone to lunch or coffee, or virtual lunch or coffee, and saying, I just haven't caught up with you in a while. I'd love to, spend some time catching up. Words of affirmation is next. So words of affirmation, it's defined as using personalized and intentional words to convey a positive message about someone's character. And what's really important there is that it really is about their character and their personality. It's not just their actions or their performance. There are a lot of different ways to demonstrate words of affirmation. It can be personal, it can be public, it can be written. Some people believe that those who value words of affirmation are insecure, or that they constantly need to be kind of praised or validated. But in reality, the people who value words of affirmation as their primary love language are really just, they appreciate that kind of communication, and they like to feel heard and valued for what they bring to the table and what they bring to the relationship. So with that being said, always personalize your words of affirmation to the recipient. So you're addressing the person and not just the action. And then, some common mistakes that people sometimes make, overdoing it, maybe kind of overpraising people and, having that kind of lose its meaning a little bit along the way. And then obviously sometimes people don't like the public attention. So if you know that someone's primary language is words of affirmation, don't assume that that means that they want to be publicly praised, at work or on social media or whatever that might look like. It never hurts to, kind of feel that out first. And then some basic ways that I've found are really helpful to practice this kind of affirming the character and not just the action. So, instead of going to someone and saying, hey, thanks for listening to me vent about this, you could say, I know that active listening is a strength of yours, and I'm really glad I can trust you with this. Or, instead of saying, you did great on that presentation the other day, which is, a performance, like something, an action they took, saying to them, I really admire your presentation skills and your ability to connect people to a purpose, and really connecting that to what is it that you really bring to the table, not just, what is the action that you did well. There's nothing wrong with that, but it never hurts to go the little bit of an extra mile and really address someone's character. Okay, last two. So physical touch, defined as connection through a tangible contact with others, feeling valued through physical proximity. You all, this is so hard right now. And I have a number of friends and family members who truly value physical touch, and, they're huggers, and they miss just that, just the feeling of being able to hug their friends and, shake someone's hand. And it is tough right now. There are a few ways in which, under normal circumstances, obviously practicing physical touch can work. So, anything as informal as handshakes and high fives up to, whatever you and other people are comfortable with, depending on your relationship and, the nature of that relationship. Common myth is that people who value physical touch sometimes have attachment issues, they're clingy, or my favorite, they are hitting on you. And in reality, the fact is, people who value physical touch find that energy and that support when they feel connected to others. So do ask permission, casual, hey, are you a hugger is always, always appreciated. Do use your best judgment, and don't do anything to make yourself or others uncomfortable. My favorite tip that I've ever learned about physical touch is, if you yourself are really not the physical touch type, and it's several people's blind spot, that bottom language, think outside the box, because sometimes even just the physical proximity of taking a walk with somebody or opening a door for someone can convey that same kind of physical proximity to someone who appreciates physical touch. So, and then of course you can always send a virtual hug. Then finally, we have tangible gifts, which is demonstrating appreciation through thoughtful and predetermined gestures. So it's always the thought that counts, which means personalize it as much as you can. Even simple thank you notes can go a long way. And just like FaceTime is quality time's best friend, I have found that things like Venmo can be gifts' best friend. So when you are, especially when you're separated from the people in your life who appreciate gifts, sending a quick $5 over Venmo to grab a coffee that day when they're having a rough day, or just sending them a quick thank you note, things like that. So it truly does not matter how big or how small, as long as the recipient feels that they were seen and they were thought of in a predetermined way. So quick common myth is, and this is a pretty obvious one, but people who value tangible gifts are materialistic, or they're greedy, or they're spoiled, because they, frequently express how loved they feel when they receive a tangible gift. But in reality, it's, people who value tangible gifts feel appreciated when they know someone was thinking about them, and when they show it in a personalized way, even when that person isn't around. And so obviously, again, do make it personal. Investigate ahead of time. So, try to learn about the person beforehand and learn what they really like. And then obviously, be mindful of logistics and obviously think about, what makes the most sense. And then obviously with don't generalize it and don't overdo it, because it can quickly make somebody uncomfortable if they feel like the gift was, overdone or maybe overly unnecessary. And then my favorite quick tip for tangible gifts is, if you're ever in doubt, stick to food and caffeine, because no one will say no to, no one will say no to like a coffee or, a quick treat along the way. And it's always a safe bet. So to wrap up, these are some reflection questions that I like to ask. First, how do you like to receive your primary language? Whether you have taken the assessment or not, you likely have a sense of what your primary love language is. And so take some time to think about how you like to receive that love language. And then, knowing the people in your life and knowing what their primary love language is, what is a way that you can show someone else appreciation through their love language? So use some of the tips that we talked about tonight. Think outside the box, think creatively, and think about the different ways in which you can, connect with the people who are important to you in that very individualized and personalized way that will be meaningful to them. And that is it. So if you would like to keep talking about this, I could talk about it forever, and I'm always available to chat. So there's my contact information, and I also facilitate the Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace course for, I've done it for a few different types of groups, like nonprofit and corporate student groups. And so it's a lot of fun, and the conversation can go in all types of directions. So if you want to learn more about it, feel free to reach out. But that is it. So I'm going to hit escape, and then
perfect.
You can bring me back. There we are.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you so much, Anna. This was really, really good information. But as we start with questions are going to start coming in just a second. But I kind of want to ask you, you have your certification in this. This is something that you do on the side. So for you, what was your motivation behind diving into this beyond just like, hey, I read the book and I'm talking about it to my friends, to like, investing time and money to kind of pursue this?
That's a really good question. I think from the very beginning, I was so invested in it, I was so invested in it from the beginning, because I feel like my, purpose is to show others appreciation and show others love. And so I was so drawn to this concept because I think it's so easy for us to show appreciation in the way that we like to receive it, but it takes that extra effort and it takes that extra time and commitment to really learn how somebody else wants to receive that appreciation and cater it towards them. And so it just really fascinated me. And I think in learning how to, especially going through the certification for the Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, I think really my motivation there was that it's something that I think a lot of people ignore in the workplace before they hear it put in that context, because, it's so easy to hear love languages and think, well, that doesn't really belong in the workplace. That's for romantic relationships or your family or friends, things like that. But it can go so far in a workplace. And when I discovered that there was this separate avenue for that, it was a no-brainer. It was like, I have to chase this. I have to learn anything I can about this, because I want to be able to bring that into that working environment.
Well, okay, that I appreciate you saying that. I love that you have a passion and then pursue it. That's what we want. So question comes, what are some ways you've grown in your blind spot love language? My blind spot is words of affirmation.
That's a good one. So my blind spot is acts of service. And the way in which I experienced that is there was a point in my life, and I'm still getting over this. I think it's kind of a daily thing, but there's definitely a point in my life where it made me so uncomfortable when people would show me appreciation through acts of service, because I was worried that I was coming off as that myth of acts of service, like I needed to be rescued, or I needed so much assistance, things like that. I think there are a few things that have really helped me kind of see the bigger picture. I think as I've explored these languages a lot more and tried to find different ways in which they show up in the world, I've met a lot of people, my fiance included, who really value acts of service, and I've seen that kind of difference of here's what it's like to ask for an act of service and without having any kind of guilt behind it, and I've been able to see other people do that. And it's helped me get to a point where I can not only, ask for help, but I can also, again, still something I'm working on, but I can not only ask for help, but I can also recognize, hey, this person needs assistance with this project or this effort, and it's okay for me to, it's okay for me to offer, and it's okay for me to, show that to them. And so it takes time. I think specifically, a lot of people do have a blind spot of words of affirmation because sometimes they feel like they don't know how to show that or what kind of method the people want to receive it in. But I think it takes practice, and it takes thinking outside the box and thinking creatively, because a lot of people might think, I'm not good at showing love in XYZ manner because the only way I can picture doing that is through this method. But in reality, there's so many different ways to show each of these love languages. There's a whole concept about how each language has its own dialects. And so it's, there's so many different ways to practice. So keep an open mind and keep practicing it, I would say.
I love that. So even if you assume it's hard for you, your blind spot love language, you may be thinking about only one way to achieve that language when really there's different dialects in it that may better suit who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. So what would you say, since you've done your kind of group place, like workplace certifications and like facilitating these conversations, what would you say to a manager or someone who's leading a team who maybe feels uncomfortable with the idea of, love languages? They just like, I'm just gonna give directives and that's it. And then second, when you have like words of affirmation, all five of these manifest itself differently. And maybe to talking to a manager who may feel scared that it may seem that you're showing favoritism to one particular employee or another.
That's a really, really good question. Yeah. So for the first one, I would say it's very normal to feel uncomfortable with it at first, especially in the workplace. And I think especially, my gosh, I mean, the number of people that I've talked to that just say, well, we want to learn about, the words of affirmation, the quality time, and the acts of service. The other two we don't do. Like we can't do physical touch or tangible gifts because this is a workplace. Like you can. And so I think it's so normal for people to be hesitant or uncomfortable at first. And what I would say to that is take some time to not only have employees take the assessment themselves, they can take the normal love languages assessment too. Take some time to have them take the assessment, and then just allow a space for vulnerability and allow people to just talk about it. And, even if it's starting from, okay, I just learned that my top love language is quality time. Here's what I think of when I think of that. And it's my friends, my family, my partner, whatever. But, but here's how this might help me at work. Here's something I feel like would make me really happy in a workplace. And just kind of allow room for everyone to express that. And I think that almost kind of leads into that second part question, because the favoritism thing, or, how do you, as a manager working with multiple people, how do you show that language specifically to different people? I think if that open dialogue happens, and if people recognize that everyone experiences and expresses love and appreciation in different ways, then the goal is that the norm in that group culture is I may receive affirmation from my boss in this way, and she may receive affirmation from the same boss, but in a different way. And that's okay, because, while she really appreciates, or he really appreciates having, his or her name on a praise board, or sent in a company-wide email, I really just want somebody to, I really just want my boss to, sit down over lunch with me and talk. And I think if the norm is set to where everybody understands that that is the expectation, it can hopefully alleviate some of that favoritism aspect.
Yeah.
But I think it's also just really important to know that that expectation really does have to be there. And so especially when hiring new employees, if it's something that your workplace wants to incorporate, it should be one of those early things that you talk about and say, hey, we practice languages of appreciation here. I want to learn yours. How can we show you appreciation at work? So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. It's a really good question.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, really, really helpful, especially the expectation piece. When there's expectation, then you can move forward and do the thing that you feel like you need to do. Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously Community and Culture Night, one of our goals is to continue to build community, hopefully, online, and then hopefully we can gather together. So we always want to ask this question of all presenters as we wrap up. What does community look like to you? What does community mean to you?
That is my favorite question that you all ask every week. I love that. And this is going to sound cheesy, having just talked about what I've talked about, but I mean, community to me is love and appreciation. Community is knowing that you are surrounded by people who genuinely want to appreciate you, and that you genuinely want to appreciate back. And I mean, it's been so inspiring, despite everything that is going on in our world right now. It has been so inspiring to see those moments of genuine, honest love and appreciation where they might not have been before. And I think right now, community to a lot of us really means making the effort and showing that you are there. And my gosh, especially when we're all remote and we're all separated, showing that you're there in any sense, and you're there for one another. And so just that genuine love and appreciation for me.
Awesome. Well, I know you included, we'll make sure we share where we can find you. Is there any other place that people who want more information, where they can find you, get a hold of you, reach you, that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll definitely share the slides. You can, and my contact information is there. Anna Bokman on Facebook, Anna CB05, I believe, on Instagram. Hit me up. I'd love to keep talking.
Perfect. Well, Anna, thank you so much. We really appreciate the wisdom you had today. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Nee. Thanks for all of this. It was a great night, and loved the questions, and loved hearing LaMarcus speak. And yeah, thanks for bringing us together.
Absolutely. Take care. Well, guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate you hopping on and being a part of our 2 conversations today. They were great. I hope you guys learned something new, feeling refreshed and challenged. I just want to let you know our next Community and Culture Night is going to be June 18th, same place, same time, 7 o'clock. We hope that you're there. Invite somebody. We're going to have really exciting conversations with someone from Yelp Indy, as well as a professional car detailer who's going to give some tips and tricks on how to make your car awesome. So we're really excited for the 2 conversations we have. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, join the group, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.